All right. Hi, my name is Jackson Yeager, and for my final project in sociology class, my sociological issue I picked was family issues and relations. And just a little intro here. Um, my topic as I said, for this project was family issues and relations, and I chose this topic just because I feel that is an important topic because me personally, my family dynamic wasn't the greatest, and I know many other people around the world have gone through some of the same struggles and different struggles in any family dynamic and issues they might have. And so, basically the main motivator behind this was if I could understand the basics and understand kind of how family relationships or family issues and relationship issues come to be. Maybe I can figure out the source on how to pretty much improve these issues not happening. Like obviously you can't. Obviously it's a goal that is kind of impossible because you're going to have family issues that come up and you're going to have issues in relationships. But what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that if you could figure out kind of the underlining meaning or source why like some of these issues come up, or maybe like a hidden meaning, it may be used to just like overall improve issues that can occur in the future, and just hopefully not can't cancel all issues, but cancel a majority of issues people may have in a family dynamic. And then so basically I found 5 sources kind of like discussing family issues, and I pretty much found it in 3 categories where I said, so this podcast I'm going to pretty much be talking about, so like I said, how some family issues can come up, and then improving the relationships between family, friends, whatever. And then, the big chunk, if the meat and potatoes, if you will, of this podcast is pretty much going to be consequences, and that's what consequences of family and relationship issues. And like I said, this is kind of the meat and potatoes of my podcast because there's a lot of articles you can find that talk about family issues and relationships, and there's a lot of studies that were done that have, I should say, data and information on the consequences of these family issues on children, on friends, on loved ones, and that's why it's the meat and potatoes of this podcast, because there's just so much information on just consequences of if you don't resolve these family issues. And then so, like I said, just the process for this project is I found sources, recorded myself on a podcast here, and I'm just gonna go over the podcast now, or go over my sources on the podcast now. And so this first source I found was from mybodygreen.com, and it was titled "Common Family Issues and How to Deal with Them from Experts." So the author of this is Sarah Reagan, and these are just kind of basic, and it might seem kind of silly talking about these, but I think it's important to understand, like she said in her article, just common family issues, and she gives good examples on how to deal with them. So right away, she started off the bat with a common family issue is clashing and/or toxic personalities. So pretty much it's just saying, like, if it's between a husband and wife, it's between maybe a spouse and children. Obviously, the age difference or just the personality difference in this case can cause just clashing and or toxic personalities between whoever the family members are that are arguing. And she was saying it's far from uncommon for a family to have clash personalities, and that makes complete sense. I think of me growing up, I had three other siblings, and I could say pretty confidently that all of us are completely different. So when you have completely different personalities and you're living with these people 24/7, it only makes sense that you're going to have fights or in conflict when you are not kind of thinking the same way, if that makes sense. So I really like that. It's like I said, it might seem silly to kind of talk about just like these common things, but I think it's important to understand the motivation behind these conflicts, because I think if you understand the root of the problem, it's a lot easier to get to the solution of the problem. So then another one here, Sarah said, she said poor communication. Again, I speak from family experience, where that could just be said in any relationship. Doesn't have to be family relationships, could be anything. If you just have poor communication between anybody, you both are not clear on what you want done or what you want said or like the meaning behind your words. So if you don't have that, that's just going to create false sense of trust between people, and they're going to be looking to see if you have any hidden motives or anything. Another common family issue, she said, is heavy pressure from parents. I feel like a lot of kids, I know personally, at college and at home do experience this from their parents. As a child of your, mom and dad, you obviously want to impress them and do the best of your ability in anything. And so maybe your parents don't even realize it sometimes, maybe they do, but you feel like you have an obligation to perform to the best of your ability. And I do believe sometimes parents do cause this because they see maybe you're good at something, and then maybe if you don't perform at whatever it is you're good at, as you have in the past, it could like kind of be intimidating to like speak, or not intimidating to speak to your parents, but I should say like just intimidating to like fail your parents. And like I guess a more common example I can think of that will put it into better information and make more sense is like I always think of like the little league kid who like say he's having a good baseball game and they play bad the next game, and like you get that pressure from your dad and you're in the car and he's like talking to you about why you did bad at the baseball game and stuff like that. So that's just a common example I think of. And finally, she put a lot of obviously different examples in here because there can be endless and endless amounts of examples for family issues. But I think one that I didn't understand as a kid, as I understand now, is money. Obviously, it's not cheap to raise a family in the United States of America these days. And I think I can really respect my parents now more now than when I was little, because I understand how much I understand how hard it is to work for money and how much like money means to them, and it's just not something that not just something that can be easily attained, and it's hard. You have to pay for groceries, not for you, but your children, and you have to pay for utilities, rent, mortgage, whatever, so on and so forth. And you don't really have money to yourself most of the time. So I definitely see why that is a big one. And then I can move on here. So like I said, now this part will be about improving those relationships. And so this one was from raisingchildren.net. And this is just, again, pretty common examples, but I think it's important to go over them. Steps in improving relationships between your family or friends is, first of all, just quality time. Find something that you enjoy doing with a family member or a friend, and just do that as often as you can. Create those memories, and just have a good time. And then, like we said about what an issue could be, not clear communication can be an issue, and this one is saying you got to have positive communication in the family relationships and friend relationships. And positive communication is just obviously uplifting to hear positive words from loved ones. So that's just going to strengthen family ties and relationships even more between friends, family, etc. And then I really like this one, teamwork. I think when you have families that work together to get something done, it's a lot easier for them to get along because you feel like you're accomplishing a goal together. So, yeah, that's a good one. I think just personal examples, I think of when like when it would be like it would be like a Sunday and the whole family cleans the house. Like, yes, you're doing work, but it's still a good time. You're still doing it together, so you still are with your family and spending quality time with them, even if you're doing work. Like, you're still together. So, all right, that was a couple ways to improve. And now I'm gonna get, like I said, to the meat and potatoes of this podcast. And so I found a scholarly article on Sage Journals, and this one was talking about families and schools and the effect of parental involvement on high school completion. So this study examined European Americans, Latino Americans, Asian Americans, and Native Americans, and their parental involvement on their children's high school completion. And this states how an examination of how differently family structures have influenced the student's education was conducted. So this talks about pretty much, what was it, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 subgroups of people from different ethnicities, and how obviously they're going to have different, their parents are going to have different styles on raising their children. So this study was pretty much examining how each kid raised in a European family, Latino family, an Asian American family, Native American family. It pretty much examined how those kids, what their stats were for completion of high school. So I thought that was interesting because I don't think about sometimes how each and every one of us were raised differently. We're not all raised the same. So I really like the study and how it did a deep dive on like how different parenting styles affect like grades and just completion of high school. Another study here. This one was from, I believe, Online Library. This was another scholarly article I found, and it was just talking about divorce. So post-divorce family relationships as mitigating factors and consequences of divorce for children. And in this study, it was a psychological study of a family after divorce is seen as meditating the impact of divorce upon children. And this one was pretty much talking about some consequences of like divorce has on children. And I mean, you think about family issues, divorce is pretty much the final say of enough of family issues. It's pretty much for whatever reason, but I mean that a divorce divides a family. And so they said they were in the study. They were comparing some things, and they looked at the effects of divorce upon child behavior, and relationships, stress, aggression, and then like their work effectiveness at school were all examined. And they did a comparison of the behaviors child of a divorced family and a comparison of a child's family who was still intact. And then they did an analysis between like their mood, their grades in school, their overall demeanor. And yeah, they found that for divorce and intact groups combined, the relationships along family members appeared to be more potent influences on child behavior than was marital status. So that makes complete sense. You think about if the house is divided and your parents getting divorced, that's obviously a lot on a kid, and they're going to carry that with them into school. So it makes sense when this study says that divorce impacts the overall just well-being of a child. And then my final source here, this one is talking about family issues and the mental health side. And so this one was pretty much saying, where is this thing? Oh, this was talking about the symptoms of family issues right away. And this says, so some common symptoms right away are anxiety and worrying, more frequently sad and depression, and then just in general stress. And it was showing that when family issues are relevant and happening quite a bit, everyone's on edge, and conflicts with other loved ones who are outside your intermediate family are way more likely to happen. And then finally, just overall self-esteem was just extremely low in families that said they were struggling with each other. And so yeah, that was pretty much my project. I haven't written my reflection yet, but I will write it in the school of doc I have now, but I can talk on it. After doing this podcast and looking up these 5 sources here, I mean, it makes sense to me how family issues begin, like the examples I said before. There's just a lot of stuff going on in the world where family issues can be brought into the family pretty easily and they can be divided. And I get it, it's tough these days, but I really liked the studies shown and how it affects children and other family members and friends, just like from the little things and how like detrimental it can be to how a child is raised and how they grow up. I mean, you heard me say it before, divorced parents, it really affects how a child is grown up and how like it can completely change their whole demeanor in school and everything. So I mean, it affects a child tremendously, and especially in like a pivotal point in their time where they're doing the most growing and maturing in their young life. And so I mean, it just really opened my eyes to how impactful small family issues can be, and if you keep adding them up, how detrimental they can be to others around you. And I would say, I guess final words here, I would say I really enjoyed doing this study and looking at all these different sources. I would say the one solution I said in the beginning when I said I would like to figure out the basics, I think I figured out all the basics. And I think just the solution that stood out to me clearly was communication. I feel like if you have clear communication between family members, it really opens doors for lots of possibilities to improve your family. So yeah. All right, that was my podcast. Thank you very much. I enjoyed the class overall for the year, and I hope you have a good Christmas. Happy holidays.